everyone, and welcome to another episode of DMV Confidential. I'm Kenzie Chase.
And I'm Jenny Gable.
And today we have a brand new episode for you today. So, the story we're going to talk to you guys about today is about a 50-year-old woman who was raped and murdered in a place she should have felt safe and protected, in a place that helps people. And this was in 1998. So we want to talk to you about today is the murder of Sheryl Crandell.
Yes, so it was January 13th, 1998, around 8:30 p.m. when a maintenance worker actually at Prince George's Hospital Center found 50-year-old Sheryl dead in her family health center office, and that's in the Sheryl area of Prince George's County. And without getting into too many graphic details there, she was found dead, and an autopsy report actually confirmed that her death was, cause of death was strangulation, and investigators believe that she was raped before she died as well.
Yes, and so from the investigation, investigators were able to collect DNA samples from semen and other evidence around the area. But I just think to just start off talking about that to begin with, I mean, obviously this is going to be a tough case because we are hearing about someone who was murdered at a hospital.
Yeah.
And, raped at a hospital before her murder.
A place where she worked. You know, this is somewhere where she worked every day to help take care of other people. And, you know, I believe police even said at one point, this is a place where lives are supposed to be preserved and not taken. So for something like this to happen there where she should have felt safe is really, really sad.
Yes, and this is, I think, the first case that we've covered quite like this. Most of the ones that we've covered are in a home or, you know, in a less safe area or, you know, things like that where it's not, it's more common, I guess, in those areas. Not that it should be, but this happened at a hospital. And
it's not something you would expect to see.
Yeah, exactly. Not something you would expect. Yeah. But yeah, 1998. And so when they go into the early investigations, investigators are sort of painting a picture of what happens at the hospital and just sort of trying to figure out what could have caused this. And investigators were able to sort of determine that there were quite a bit of thefts that happened at that hospital. And so, in fact, Sheryl herself was concerned about these thefts.
Yeah, Sheryl had actually complained to security at the hospital about the thefts. I believe one of her last emails sent was saying that she was worried about these thefts that were happening, that somebody would end up getting hurt. And she complained about thefts from even her own office there in the hospital. So it was an issue that employees there were kind of seeing, and she, you know, was somebody that had spoken out about it before this took place.
Yeah, and that's also crazy to think about. So investigators did sort of believe that maybe this stemmed from a theft. That's sort of what police later told the public, was that they believe that this might have stemmed from someone trying to steal from the hospital. And that just goes to show how sad her emails really are. The fact that she was reaching out and trying to get help by the fact that there were these arrests. These thefts, excuse me. And, you know, trying to get someone to listen, someone could get hurt.
And expressing concern that other people could be hurt by this.
She didn't even mention it herself.
Even though she had these thefts from her own office, she was worried her fellow coworkers, other people, because again, this is a hospital where patients come for treatment.
Yes, and imagine how many vulnerable patients there are just in the hospial beds or around the area, even people working late at night. There is so many things that could happen. So I'm saying this, but I feel it's so sad that this happened to her, someone who was the one trying to reach out to get help, see if there was more security or something that could be done to sort of mitigate these thefts that could and probably did lead to something more.
Yeah, it leaves you, I mean, you can't help but wonder, I know when I was reading about this case, if something, you know, could have been done to prevent something like this from happening, if they had placed, you know, more security or something. I mean, not to place blame on anybody else but who committed the act, but
yes,
if this was like a repeated issue there that was happening. And investigators did say, like you said, Kenzie, that they believe it was somebody who came in to commit a theft and then maybe came across Sheryl in her office and kind of
took advantage of the situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that is according to Detective Bernard Nelson, who originally got this case back in 1998. Well, I mean, this is like before even the 2000s. This is 1998, so there's not that much investigators can do. They took the DNA, they did what they could, but unfortunately, the case does go cold.
For more than 27 years, actually, the case was left unresolved. And as a matter of fact, like you said, they did take the DNA from the semen samples and things like that, but that DNA didn't run any hits in the database. Like, this person's DNA was not in the system for them to be able to have a match there.
Yes, and for the detective that got this case originally, this is very frustrating for him. In fact, he discusses the fact that he had Sheryl's like reward poster for any information like on his desk. Mm-hmm. Like he really wanted to get some sort of justice for Sheryl and her family. This happened at a hospital where people are supposed to be safe. Yeah. I think he felt very passionate about it, and this was also something that like kind of shook the community. Yeah. Bernard tells us that hospital workers were concerned that they weren't going to make it home.
For their own safety,
yeah. Which is crazy because hospital workers should not have to worry about that.
Like, I mean, they're taking care of other people, and it's like trying to imagine if, I was trying to think like in that how I would have felt in that situation. Mm-hmm. If you hear about something like this happening at your place of work, maybe somebody you knew. Yeah. Like trying to go to work and then feel safe after that.
And it's not even like this was like a high risk job necessarily for themselves. It's not like police officers or firemen who like go and seek danger. These are people that have sort of the aftermath of danger, or like people, the caretaker role. Mm-hmm. And now they're fearing for their life that in their caretaker role, they could end up hurt. And he says rightfully so, because I would be scared if that happened at my work, and that just happened on like a random day. Yeah,
it's just a horrible situation. And, like you said, he really wanted to get this case solved. Investigators put out leads. They, were offering these rewards, tracking leads, I meant to say. And they weren't really coming up with anything there. And they actually even did speak to someone that they said was a witness. But at the time of Sheryl's murder, they didn't realize that they were maybe seeing a crime take place.
Which is even kind of scarier when I can't imagine how that person was feeling thinking back about it. I don't know what they thought they were seeing. I don't know if they thought, I don't know. I don't know if they thought they were seeing something that was like not suspicious to them. Mm-hmm. But looking back at it in hindsight, like I can't imagine how they're feeling like I was watching someone's last moments. Yeah, or like I was watching the aftermath. Like, we don't know at what stage they saw this, but they were able to kind of give like a description sort of. So they had that to go off of, but very little information.
Yeah, investigators didn't really detail what this person saw exactly, just that at the time maybe they didn't say anything when the suspect was there because they didn't really know the extent of what was going on. Yeah, and it could have been a number
of reasons. I mean, it could have been like they're scared for their own safety. So we don't know why they didn't really talk at the time, but in hindsight, I'm sure they're feeling like all of those emotions of like realizing what they witnessed or possibly witnessed. Yeah. So
it's just horrible.
Yeah. And again, I keep going back to the fact that like she was trying to email to get these thefts resolved. And
I mean, like she was worried, and you shouldn't, feeling like that again at your place of work. This is somewhere you go every day. You're taking care of other people.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to be worrying about your own safety on a day-to-day, like, for something that could be resolved, in my opinion, like cameras, security guards, I don't know.
Yeah, because again, it's from thefts at the hospital.
Right, so I kind of want to play a clip from the detective to kind of paint a picture of some of what he was feeling with this case.
For 31 years, and I worked on hundreds of homicide cases. I wanted to close all of them. Unfortunately, some may not. However, Sherry Crandell's homicide was always at the top of my list, and I've always said that this is one case that I want to close before I retire. I missed by about 7 months, but it's now closed. We still have a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot to get some answers as to why certain things happen, which I'm going to do my best to do for you, the Crandell family. But we now know the who, which was the most important part. Her reward poster always stayed at my desk for 31 years.
So you heard a little bit at the end that his reward poster, what we mentioned earlier, that her reward poster stayed at his desk.
Yeah.
You also hear a little bit of a teaser of what's to come, because this doesn't end in the way you might think.
Yeah, I think it ends in a little bit of an unsuspected way. And again, that was Bernard Nelson. He was the homicide detective that worked on this case from the beginning for years, really. And that kind of leads us to all these years have passed, and they've been kind of tracking this and trying to figure out who exactly did this. They have this DNA, but no real match for it. And that really takes us to December 2021, when the cold case unit for the Prince George's County Police Department was able to get permissions from the courts to use something that we've heard about before and we've talked about before on this show, but genetic genealogy and connection.
Which is something, again, like you mentioned, Jenny, is something that we're seeing come up in quite a bit in some of these cases, especially some of these cold cases, is the use of this genealogy technology, like all this stuff that is coming out that is helping investigators sort of paint family trees. And so that's kind of what they did. And when they first tried this, it kind of seemed like it was going to be a lost cause. Yeah. It came back to sort of like a fourth cousin removed, some sort of distant relative. And they kind of were like, well, is this even worth pursuing? This isn't really much to go off of. Mm-hmm. But I think because of the situation, I think they were even more passionate about it because they kept pushing on to see if they could narrow it down. Yeah,
I know that Bernard Nelson, who we heard from, said that I believe the civilian genealogist kept kind of pushing for it and kept trying to, they said, like, run different paths to figure it out. And actually the FBI Baltimore's office actually ended up stepping in to help continuing narrow it down, despite the fact that police were initially told, like, hey, we're coming up with results from, I believe they said, a fourth cousin. It was a little too far removed, they thought at the time, to try to get the exact person of who did this.
Right. So, but then they were able to sort of create that family tree and begin slowly narrowing it down, collecting more DNA samples from those that they were able to, narrowing it down further, until they became confident in a suspect in late October of 2025.
Yeah, and that suspect actually is a man named Barry Shabazz, and he was a man actually that investigators, he was no unknown person to law enforcement. Yes. He had an extensive criminal history, as a matter of fact, of attempted rape and multiple thefts, which they noted was something that they believe fit the suspect description of why the person was there to begin with.
The lead detective said that, like, that was what the profile of who they were sort of looking for. So it wasn't surprising. They believed it would be someone who would have prior either attempted thefts or actual, like, thefts. They believed it was someone who would have a criminal history, might be known to law enforcement. So when this name came up, I think they were like, I think this was like a gotcha moment for them. Yeah. You know, like, this is the person that fits all these other check marks. Because, again, they believe this originally stemmed from a theft. They don't believe that this person came in with the intent to commit harm so much as this person came with the intent to steal and saw an opportunity and took advantage of it.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, something that Detective Nelson mentioned is that when this name came up, he actually started keeping Barry Shabazz's photo, I believe, like in his wallet, in his car, other places like that.
Yes, way before he was ever officially named a suspect. Yeah. He had this hunch in the back, and that must have been so frustrating for him, Jenny, to have this hunch of this guy who matches this profile, but, like, you can't really prove it.
Because it's like now they're starting to think it was him, but they don't have that final like proof until actually they were able to get a reference sample from his nephew, and that further confirmed that, police said it unequivocally confirmed that he was the one who did this.
Right. So they got the DNA sample, and they were able to sort of come to the conclusion that Bari Shabazz was responsible. I want to play a little bit of a clip from the detective again, talking about Bari himself.
And as it turns out, it ends up being someone who fits into our theory when we first started, that this was someone who came off of the streets to possibly steal out of the hospital, which they had a history of at that time, and who was an opportunist who took advantage of the situation when he came across Sheryl Crandell. So it was no surprise that he filled that realm. This is a bittersweet moment for me. And
we're about to talk about why this is a bittersweet moment for investigators.
Yeah, so they finally have this name after all these years. Again, more than 27 years have gone by since Sheryl was killed like this in her place of work. And that's when investigators they realize that Bari actually died in 2019. They stated natural causes, but this was really frustrating.
Yeah, like 69 years old, like just before he was 70.
But this was really frustrating for these investigators. As Nelson said, they've put years into this, but also the family, I can imagine, in this case.
Well, I just keep going back to the fact that, like, the detective had a hunch that it was him. He just couldn't prove it. Mm-hmm. And so imagine how frustrating it was for him, especially to believe that this guy was the one responsible, have a good hunch that this guy was responsible. It's confirmed to them at least, by this technology that it was him, and then to find out that he died before there was ever like real justice.
Yeah, and he also even said that, to find out that he died before they were even able to start the genealogy process. Like, because again, he died in 2019, and they got permission from the courts to even start that process in 2021, because again, that's like a newer technology that we're seeing in a lot of cases, but it hasn't been available for
But way before they even did that, he had a hunch that this guy might be responsible. So I just imagine how frustrating that would have been, just to be like, I knew it. I knew that this guy was responsible. And now they can't even, like, much less convict him, sentence him, all of that. They can't even ask him questions. Like, why?
Yeah, I think the frustrating part for, investigators and family in this case is that there is that sense of closure, right? Like, they finally know who committed this horrible act, but at the same time, they're not able to really feel like they can get that sense of justice because there's no trial that's able to happen. They're not able to hear his side of the story, no conviction in the case.
And then there's always going to be the question, because, you're innocent till proven guilty by a court of law. There's always going to be a question of, did he do it? Investigators are pretty dang confident that he did. Yeah. But there's a court system and a legal system for a reason. So he's never going to actually be convicted by a jury of his peers. He's never going to plead guilty. So I think there's always going to be maybe that underlying question, or maybe not. Maybe family investigators really feel like, okay, this is the guy, and that's closure enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it's definitely a really tough situation because, I think just trying to imagine, like, how I would even feel in that situation, the ideal thing would be, okay, they found the person that did this, and then they're able to get that justice. They're able to get sentenced and, like, serve the time that they deserve to serve for committing that. But I can also understand, like, after all these years, to get that sense of closure that they know who did this also is relief there.
At least it's something, right? So that's why I think the detective called it, like, a bittersweet moment. Like, they know who did it. They feel confident in who did it. Yeah. But he goes on to, like, express his frustration that they'll never get to question him. They'll never get to find out why he did it. Yeah. They'll never get to go to court and see him sentenced and see him serve the time that he deserved, or they believe he deserved.
And I can't help but wonder, with this genetic genealogy technology, if they had this years ago, how many cases would have been solved?
Oh yeah, Jenny, many,
because
imagine.
We see this so much, and we brought it up in several of our episodes, but oftentimes they're able to use this, but it's such a new technology that,
I mean,
if we had this 20 years ago.
Yeah,
even.
that 2021, that's like only 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of this technology is like even newer than that. I mean, it's constantly developing. So I can't even imagine how many more cases we're going to see. I mean, I can't remember. This is like the 4th one that we've reported on from Montgomery or from Prince George's County.
Yeah.
Something like that. We've reported quite a bit from Prince George's County. We've reported quite a bit from Montgomery County, who have done similar things.
Yes.
So, and a lot of the cold cases we've been reporting on are because of this new technology. So I imagine we're going to keep seeing that trend, right?
And that also kind of touches on just a little bit, you had mentioned it, about what his Bari's connection was to the hospital and to Sheryl. Investigators, they don't have all the answers to things because, again, he's not alive to kind of speak to them, but they did kind of see that an address that he had listed at the time was about a mile from the hospital. They said it's about a 5-minute drive, like a 35-minute walk or something.
Again, so leading to that position where they don't believe that they knew each other. It was just an opportunity that he saw in the moment and decided he was going to take advantage of that situation.
Yeah.
But again, I still have so many questions, but I think the biggest one for investigators was answered, and I think that brought its own sense of closure. And I think some of the family members also feel the same way. In fact, we're about to play a clip from some of the family members, or at least one of the family members. You can see the other two kind of standing off to the side, but kind of talking about this case in general and sort of the work that went into it.
Thoughts and prayers didn't close this case. We must also recognize Detective Bernie Nelson, who has led this case since 1998 and continues to work on it to this day. Our family knows Bernie never gave up on solving this case or forgot about our mother during these 27 years. So Bernie and everyone involved in this investigation, thank you. Our family is forever grateful.
So we can see that's one of Sheryl's sons, and two more of her children are standing to the side, and then you can kind of see the detective in that far left corner in the back that they're referring to.
Yeah, so we just heard from her son, Darren. She, just a little bit more about who she was as a person, because again, she was a real person with a family who was affected by this.
3 children.
Yeah, she was a mother of 3 children. Detective said that she was a sister, and they described her as somebody who was caring and kind and thoughtful. And I think that kind of goes back to, just the field she worked in. She took care of people.
I just want to keep going back to that because at a hospital is just so sad. I mean, this is like the place where people go to get help, treated. They deal with people that are sick, wounded, dying, lost someone, about to lose someone. I mean, they deal with some people in all these different circumstances and grow to be very compassionate and kind. And this field is tough.
Yeah, you have to be a strong person to be able to work in the medical field or, in any caregiving role where you're taking care of somebody who is going through something. So I think that's just really a testament to the type of person that she was.
Right, and then she's also, again, she's someone who wants things to change. She wants to see change. So, she's also, again, the person that was emailing and telling about these thefts that Bari Shabazz was supposedly a part of even. Yeah. The investigators believe that he was a part of these thefts that they're referring to in the hospital. So it's so sad to see that she wanted to make a change, and before she got to see that change enacted, her life ended and she was killed.
It's really just a horrible thing, and you really, I feel like watching that clip, feel for her kids. You can tell that they're emotional. I can't even imagine 27 years have gone by since they've been able to see their mother because of something like this. And that also just kind of reminds me again about, I was just out of curiosity, we looked up the hospital and kind of more about it, and it actually has closed down, Prince George's Hospital Center, but not because of this murder that took place, but just because officials kind of it was a 75-year-old hospital, so they replaced it with a hospital with better technology and things like that. But I was just kind of curious because you also wonder, like, if people hear about something like this, how they feel then working there or going there. But this hospital,
but the hospital no longer is standing. It's a new building.
But it was a staple in that community as well. So
right.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
So that's all we have time for today. I know that was a lot, but if you guys want to hear more about these cases as they get solved, or as questions remain, or as we're looking to uncover some of these things that still have questions about them, stay tuned, follow up with us. We'll be reporting on this on dcnewsnow.com. We're reporting on it here with you, and we will see you next time.